reason they can't reach the people in the basement is that there are so many bodies. As we've said all along, we fully expect the death toll to climb, and the question is we just don't know how high and when it will stop climbing.
The gang up in the control room, I might suggest that we, if we can, cue up those aerial shots again from earlier taken from the helicopter so that we can get give some kind of example exactly to give you an idea of exactly where we're looking at right now. We're looking at the 6th floor to give you an idea of just how much floor they have to work with there, because it really did look as if somebody had just taken a shovel and driven it right down in the middle of the building and scooped out the front third to 2/3. So there is just a very...
We'll be cutting away from the audio portion of KFOR in Oklahoma City. We'll continue to keep their pictures up for you at this time, but we'd like to bring in Dr. Camissa Stewart, who works at Logan Hospital out of Guthrie, Oklahoma, and who has been on the scene all day long at the Federal Building in Oklahoma City. Dr. Stewart, we know you're very tired, but we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
We know you've been on the scene all day, and I'm wondering what your experience was, what you saw today.
Well, I was with some of the initial surgeons that were allowed to go into the building. We were basically near the basement, first and second floor, at least initially where the credit union and nursery used to be. And I was involved with helping to bring out 2 of the survivors. There was 2 trauma surgeons that were also there, and we were able to call back and get emergency operating equipment in the basement and able to perform an amputation there by the trauma surgeons were, and help get a lady out there.
How do you operate under conditions like that, which many would describe as warlike?
It's very frustrating to not be able to. We had a lot of the equipment there, but we just couldn't get to the patients because of the amount of rubble that was in the building that had fallen down to the first, second floor.
Have you had previous experience doing trauma medicine like this before, or?
Well, I work in the emergency room and I'm the emergency room director at a hospital here just north of Oklahoma City, but I've never been involved with anything with this much mass destruction.
How strong are the support personnel? In other words, if you reach a survivor and they need some sort of on-the-scene operation and they need blood, for example, how quickly can you get all that to that person?
It's a little difficult in getting to them, is what we were finding, just because of the amount of debris. We were able to get some IV lines started on a couple of the patients that were trapped during that period of time, but a lot of it is just some bedside manner and comforting them until we can assure them that we'll be there and stay with them to get them out.
There are quite a few people still unaccounted for. As the night goes on and conditions change, what are their chances?
Well, I think we're all holding out some hope that there will be some survivors that will be found in some of those pockets that weren't able to be gotten to at this point. Unfortunately, I think some of the weather's hampering that. It's getting cold and it's wet here.
And what kind of toll is this taking on you as a rescue operation personnel, physically and mentally?
No, I think I don't realize the psychological stress quite yet at this point, but I probably will as I go home. And physically, I'm pretty beat and ready to go home, and I'm heading that way.
Will you be back again tomorrow to assist?
I think it's more if they call me and say they need me. At this point, I don't think it's so much medical personnel that they need as more heavy equipment operators and people to try to bring the debris out.
All right, our thanks once again to Dr. Camissa Stewart. Lyndon?
And our live coverage of the ongoing developments in Oklahoma City will continue. Please stay with us for more of Terror in the Heartland. We'll be right back.
You wish you could help, especially when it's your mother. It hurt me to see Mom suffering. She always had an excuse not to see a doctor. It's so frustrating. Finally, the stomach pain got so bad that she had to go. For was she relieved when the doctor said Mylanta.
Nothing soothes heartburn faster than Mylanta liquid. For occasional heartburn and acid indigestion, doctors recommend Mylanta most, even over prescription drugs.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Picking a color printer is no stroll in the park. Well, there are connectivity problems. You know quality is always an issue. And if you make the wrong choice. But one laser printer cuts through the clutter. The QMS Magicolor LX that produces sharp, high-resolution prints on plain paper. With QMS, the color you pick is the color you'll get. And the price won't blow you away. QMS Color Laser Printers. See your computer dealer or call 1-800-49-COLOR.
Watch your favorite action-adventure show, you won't have to sit so close to the screen. Because there's more leg room in the front of a Chevy S-Series than in most full-size trucks. Chevy trucks, like a rock.
The Swiss Management Group is here.
Send them in.
You're looking well, Frank. Good morning.
Good afternoon, Carl. Show me the revision.
The staffing is critical to the success
when
of the project.
Frank Miller had 5 employees and a handful of customers, he took the time to meet face-to-face.
Nothing less than double-digit increase.
Now, with employees and customers around the world, he still can.
Frank, where have you been all morning?
Right here. We're still on for lunch, right?
Seafoam. With vision comes power.
We will be taking you back to Oklahoma City live as we follow the rescue effort. As you were hearing a few moments ago from CNN affiliate KFOR, a number of people have been found alive. 3 of them have been pulled from the rubble of the federal building there. One woman was found in the basement area. There are 9 floors above ground, 4 levels below, which are parking areas, and they had pancaked one on top of the other. They found a woman who said there are 2 other people near her, but rescue officials have to get past other bodies to be able to get to them. And as you can imagine, they have to move very gingerly with the threat of those 9 stories above them, threatening to come down at any time, depending again on the stability of the construction materials. We're going to be joined now by Sean Simpson, who was an eyewitness to the explosion earlier in the day. And Sean, it appears that you suffered some injuries from that explosion. Can you tell us where you were and what happened?
Yes, I was across the street, directly across the street and to the west, a short distance, and happened to be standing by a window when the explosion occurred. It was just an incredible force. It blew me backwards several feet. Several colleagues of mine in the office were in the general vicinity. A few people moaning, a lot of blood, a lot of glass, a lot of destruction in the building that I was in.
Were you aware that it had been a bomb that had gone off at the time, or were you still shocked primarily from the force of the blast itself?
Well, I knew it was an explosion. I assumed that it had occurred just directly outside of the window that I was standing in front of. Once we got out on the street, we had a little trouble getting out the front door, so we climbed out a window into the street and walked around to where we could see the federal building. And at that point, it was incredibly clear that it was a massive explosion. In fact, we weren't sure that any part of the federal building was still there.
What were your immediate thoughts at the time? Were you fearing further explosions or that other parts of the building might come down?
Well, we were concerned that if it were a bomb, perhaps there were a bomb there that might explode. We were worried that perhaps natural gas explosions would occur. We got away pretty quickly. I noticed several people that were moving, people who weren't hurt, moving towards the federal building, but the people who were there close to the explosion, we were all moving away pretty quickly.
How many people were trying to help out with any kind of rescue effort at the time?
Within a couple of minutes, there were people everywhere trying to help. myself and another co-worker were pretty bloody, so we were asked for help any number of times, and ultimately put in a car and driven to the hospital.
Well, here you are 12 hours later, fortunate to have survived this explosion. What kind of emotions are running through you at this time? Is the weight of it sinking in now?
I'm not sure that it's sunk in. You know, I haven't really thought too much about the federal folks across the street. I really don't want to think too much about that at this point. I've got some co-workers that were in the building that I was in that I believe are hurt pretty badly, and I'm concerned for them. I feel extremely lucky to be here. I really do. That was a thought that occurred to me within the first 30 or 45 seconds.
Well, just before we leave you, there's a lot of speculation as to the source of this bomb, that perhaps it may be terrorist-oriented. How do you feel about perhaps international terrorism now being at your doorstep?
Well, to be honest, I haven't thought that part through. It's pretty shocking. You know, Oklahoma City is a great place to live, and it certainly wouldn't have occurred to us to happen here. I went home pretty shortly after getting released from the hospital, turned on the news, and you know, it's something that when I watched it, it looked like something that we see several thousand miles away, not here, just down the street.
And just finally, what brought you back to the site tonight?
I'm sorry?
What's brought you back to the site tonight?
Well, I just wanted to come back and get a better feel for what it looked like. When I was here, you couldn't really see the federal building clearly. There was black smoke pouring out of it. You know, we knew that part of it was missing, but we really couldn't see what was there. I wanted to come back, and this is something that I'm never going to forget, and perhaps I just wanted to come and imprint it a little bit deeper.
All right, Sean Simpson, we appreciate your taking time to join us tonight. Sean was in the Oklahoma Water Resources Board building near the federal building. Poppy?
And we'll be back with more of our coverage right after this break.
It's no surprise that everything here, multicolor printing, presentation materials, and more can be done by one printer. But what might surprise you is that this same printer is right around the corner. Dip Printing. You'll be surprised at what we can do.
Take the weight off your hair so it can really move, really shine with Flex Light and Free. The shampoo that's free of heavy detergents and hair dulling residue. Fresh light scent. Flex Light and Free from Revlon.
My advice to you is get a Prelude.
They are a remarkable people, a culture you'll find in the deserts, along the ocean, and in the mountains. One that celebrates youth and cherishes tradition. A people known for their artistry and their generosity of spirit. But what is most remarkable about these people is that everything they do is for the benefit of other people. They are the people of Hyatt. Come, discover the people with the Hyatt touch.
Sure, my business is saving with AT&T. At least I think so. I feel like we are. They tell us we are. How would we know if we weren't? I don't think we'd know. I don't know if we're saving.
There's no question about savings with MCI's proof positive.
Hey, Mom, I just got here. No, Super 8 isn't mad I'm late. I've got their VIP card. They'll hold my room and give me a 10% discount. What are you going to do for me?
With the VIP card, guarantee your room and save 10% at all Super 8s nationwide.
It's morning in Detroit, and Ford designers are working on a concept car. In Brazil, a class of engineers studies a new engine. In Europe, a Ford-powered car drives to victory. While in Australia, a Ford returns from an endurance ride. And back in America, the Lincoln Continental gains yet another admirer. This is Ford, a world of 322,000 people in 30 countries, where the pursuit of quality never stops.
You're looking for something different. Imagine the lush taste of paradise. Tropical passion. New from Crystal Light. Pink strawberry with a kiss of kiwi. Passion fruit with a splash of pineapple. Light, refreshing, and just 5 calories. If passion had a taste, this would be it. Tropical passion. New from Crystal Light.
Live pictures once again now from affiliate KFOR in Oklahoma City of the devastation wreaked today on a federal building in downtown Oklahoma City. To help us understand more about terrorism, bombing techniques, and why Oklahoma City was the target, we're joined by Stephen Sloan. He is a terrorism expert and political science professor at the University of Oklahoma. Mr. Sloan, we've heard several experts today say that one thing they do know, this bombing seemed highly sophisticated. What does that tell you about it, or what is your take on it?
The fingerprints on that bombing indicates probably that it was a well-organized group with a clandestine infrastructure and the logistics and capabilities to surveil the area and engage in a very horrible operation.
I think many people have been asking also why Oklahoma City was the target. It's not, a city like New York or Los Angeles, where groups like that can seem to hide more.
It is precisely because of that. You know, people are so used to saying terrorism is what happens to the other people. This has breached the insularity of the Midwest and is going to create shockwaves throughout the middle of the U.S. that didn't exist before. Aside from that, when you have hardened targets on the East Coast because of a track record, there's something called target displacement, so the perpetrators were probably also probing for softer targets, and obviously here in Oklahoma, since we haven't had a track record, we now face a grim reality.
Well, that would tell us now then that radical groups are working out of places like the Midwest. What do you know about that, especially Oklahoma?
Well, we know that there have been active groups within this region, within Texas and the surrounding area. They basically have been for political propaganda, but obviously they've used their abilities to provide safe houses and logistical support for terrorist groups, and obviously this may be a case where that happened.
We're also approaching, we're past an anniversary of the bombing of the Marine barracks in Beirut, and also the Waco, Texas anniversary. Significant at all?
I don't think the Dravidian one is. I don't think they have that capability, but I must candidly tell you, since I work in this area, the building looks very much like the Marine Corps barracks or the American Embassy in Beirut. And the shockwaves may, in a sense, come from both places.
So your assessment then, and I know I'm asking you to speculate at this time, but that it probably is a Middle East connection?
It sounds as if it is at this time. It may be a domestic group, a mole group that was activated particularly for this operation. They probably had very clean passports and no track record, but I think there's a real possibility it was a Middle Eastern group.
All right, Stephen Sloan, we thank you so much for joining us on this night.
Our live coverage of the aftermath of the explosion in Oklahoma City will continue through the night. We are preempting our regular programming here on CNN.
Stay with us.
Saturdays on CNN, a weekly guide to raising kids in the 90s. Parenting Today, Saturday, 1:30 Eastern on CNN.
This Abbey Carpet ad says they have low prices.
Well, so does this other store.
Abbey Carpet says they have professional installation.
So do these stores.
Huge selection.
Same here.
Abbey Carpet guarantees that any stain can be removed from your new qualifying carpet, or they'll replace it free.
Here, give me a minute here.
Carpets qualifying for the Scotch Care Protection Plan are on sale now at Julius Caesar Flooring and Design, serving the San Fernando Valley.
Even pet stains.
Commander, Orange County or downtown LA?
CalStar Motors in Glendale, Captain. Look, it says CalStar is comfortable.
They offer the best value. It's easy to do business there, and they're centrally located in Glendale.
Okay, let's go.
Do you think they know?
Nah.
Light years ahead for Mercedes-Benz and Volvo. Call 1-800-3-CALSTAR.
I play because the 37th pick in the draft usually doesn't. I play for the sweet crossover and the nice pull-up J. I play because, hey, I want a sneaker commercial too. I play for the sound of nothing but net. Swoosh. I play for all the people who never stop cheering. I play for Prime Sports. I play because, hey, wouldn't you?
As you cruise along in your 32-valve V8 Mercedes E, you look out over this endless ribbon of asphalt, and one word comes to mind. Yeehaw!
This is CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Give me an idea this far what you've seen.
It's horrific. So I don't understand how anybody in this world could conceive to do something like that to innocent people. It's I don't never want to look at anything like that again in my life. I really don't. It's absolutely horrific up there.
A powerful car bomb shears off 9 stories of a federal building in Oklahoma's capital.
Dozens are confirmed dead, hundreds are missing, and a nation is filled with both outrage and fear.
Hello, I'm Bobby Batista.
And I'm Lyndon Souls. Welcome to our continuing coverage of the Oklahoma explosion, terror in the heartland. An Oklahoma City TV station reports 3 people have been rescued tonight from the site of the deadliest bombing in the U.S. in 75 years. Rescue efforts will continue through the night for more survivors of the car bombing at the federal building in Oklahoma City. The blast gouged a 9-story chunk out of the front of the building. Authorities are intensively investigating, but don't yet know who is responsible. A Justice Department spokesman says the explosion is being treated as a terrorist act. The governor of Oklahoma says 26 people are confirmed dead. 11 of those victims are children who may have been in the daycare center on the building's 2nd floor. An estimated 200 people have been wounded. As many as 300 people are still missing at this hour. CNN's Bonnie Anderson has been at the scene all evening long and joins us now with the latest. Bonnie?
Well, the rescue efforts are continuing tonight as we have been reporting. There are some 60 rescue workers combing the debris very, very carefully, using cranes on the outside to peer in, and also using dogs and very sensitive microphones on the inside. Now, the report that you just mentioned about 3 people being found alive, we have just been told seconds ago that by the time they reached 2 of them, 2 of those people had indeed died. There is 1 woman now that they are trying to go after. She is still alive, and we're told that they expect to have her out of the building within a relatively short period of time. They're still, however, bringing out bodies at a rate of about 1 an hour. It's a very slow, tedious process. Now, the building was a relatively new one. It served as an annex of other federal buildings in the area. Here were housed offices with Customs, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Department of Defense, Department of Interior. What we're being told by people is that in moments, the front part of the 9-story building was simply demolished. It went from being a building brand new to one that is clearly now totally damaged. Now, survivors say the sound and the blast was overwhelming.
Then water was about that deep in the floor from the sprinklers coming on.
It was just one big explosion, a couple of just one big boom.
It sounded like just one big boom. Really loud. Then there was so much noise from everything falling in, though, you couldn't hear anything else.
So you had no idea you might have thought the ceiling would have been coming on.
Yeah. I didn't know what happened, but it was just loud.
We were on the 5th floor, the three of us. When whatever happened, happened.
You were in the first floor?
5th floor.
5th floor.
Went under a desk, right?
Huh?
You went under a table?
Yeah, I went under the table when the ceiling started to fall in. And that's what saved me, I guess.
With me now is Dr. Gary Massett, who is one of the physicians who was inside helping rescue officials try to rescue people, as well as doing what you needed to do to get them out. Can you tell us about the one case that you worked on?
Well, there was a young 20-year-old black female who was trapped underneath 2 concrete blocks and a slab of steel, and complicated by the fact that there was rebar over her, and there was no clear operating field in which we could access in order to assess whether or not we could amputate her leg to remove her from the debris. In addition to that, the Oklahoma City Fire Department, who did a marvelous job today, along with the Oklahoma City Police Department, had not really secured that portion of the building as much as they'd like. However, time was running out, and a decision was made to go ahead and, with a multiple approach, team effect, that we would go down and assess whether or not we could possibly try to remove the 20-year-old female from the debris. She'd been in water for about 4 or 5 hours most of the day. Most of the physicians were on their stomachs trying to assess the ability to amputate her leg on the spot. There were several physicians involved doing that process. We were able to secure her, create a field which would operate, and we amputated the leg on the spot, and Dr. Sullivan did a marvelous job, and we removed her to Oklahoma Memorial Hospital.
What kind of condition is she in, do you know?
As far as I know, she's stable, and she's missing her right lower leg at the knee.
Did you run into any other survivors in there who were in similar conditions, people that might need to have the same type of operation?
I mean, there was one other quite large female who had compound fractures everywhere. She weighed approximately 250, 300 pounds. In approximately the same condition, but she was able to be removed without being trapped. And the problem with the young lady that we had to remove the leg with was that we were evacuated 2 to 3 different times because the building started to vibrate. We had to all remove suddenly and then go back in and start the field all over again. So it was a very dramatic approach. The law enforcement officials have done a marvelous job of securing the area. There were a few physicians on hand at the federal building, and we stayed there and worked most of the day. So.
Well, Doctor, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
As we've been reporting, the rescue efforts will continue overnight, possibly tomorrow and through the days to come. While the death toll now is officially 26 dead, including 11 children, that is the number of people who have been brought out of the building dead. We are being told that there's still as many as 200-300 people unaccounted for. We're being told also by other rescue personnel that there are still quite a number of dead inside the building. I'm Bonnie Anderson, CNN, reporting live from Oklahoma City.
Bonnie, can you describe the scene around you as to whether there is a large crowd that has gathered, perhaps parents to stand vigil over children who still may be accounted for, or other family members standing vigil for other family members?
What I'll tell you is that there is a very wide perimeter that has been blocked off from the building. This is perhaps the closest that anyone can get to. In fact, if we can show it to you, I'll step over here. We're about a block and a half away. People gathered here. This is primarily the media. There are a lot of the government officials. The mayor was here. The governor came here. We have yet to see anybody that we could identify as a family member. I suspect that the city is keeping them in another location, and perhaps it's at the command post where they might be able to get information firsthand about what happened rather than hear it from us here. Back to you.
Bonnie Anderson in Oklahoma City, thanks very much. Bobby?
We now join CNN's Jill Doherty live at the White House for more on the administration's response to the Oklahoma City bombing. Jill?
Bobby, briefed by his senior staff on details of the bombing, shocked by television pictures of the devastation in Oklahoma City, President Clinton warned that those who carried out the killing will have swift justice.
The bombing in Oklahoma City was an attack on innocent children and defenseless citizens. It was an act of cowardice, and it was evil. The United States will not tolerate it, and I will not allow the people of this country to be intimidated by evil cowards. I have met with our team, which we assembled to deal with this bombing, and I have determined to take the following steps to assure the strongest response to this situation. First, I have deployed a crisis management team under the leadership of the FBI, working with the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, military and local authorities. We are sending the world's finest investigators to solve these murders. Second, I have declared an emergency in Oklahoma City, and at my direction, James Lee Witt, the director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is now on his way there to make sure we do everything we can to help the people of Oklahoma deal with the tragedy. Third, we are taking every precaution to reassure and to protect people who work in or live near other federal facilities. Let there be no room for doubt. We will find the people who did this. When we do, justice will be swift, certain, and severe. These people are killers, and they must be treated like killers. Finally, let me say that I ask all Americans tonight to pray for the people who have lost their lives, to pray for the families and the friends of the dead and the wounded, to pray for the people of Oklahoma City. May God's grace be with them. Meanwhile, we will be about our work. Thank you.
The FBI has set up a command post in Oklahoma City. It's in 24-hour contact with FBI headquarters and with the Justice Department back here in D.C. The FBI has sent in explosive response teams and explosive ordnance teams to Oklahoma City. Some of the forensic experts who were used in the bombing of the World Trade Center are being called in to sift through the evidence out in Oklahoma. The officials here call them very highly skilled, the best in the business. A lot of this information came from Attorney General Janet Reno, who was here at the White House this afternoon giving a briefing. She also said that the U.S. will seek the death penalty for those who carried out the bombing.
18 U.S.C. Section 844 relates to those who maliciously damage or destroy a federal building. If there is death, if death occurs, the death penalty is available, and we will seek it.
The president will continue to receive updates on the investigation and on rescue efforts as warranted. Officials here say that he will be going ahead with his public schedule on Thursday. That is to include a state visit by the president of Brazil. But as one official here put it, the last thing we want is for President Clinton to look as if he's a hostage of this situation. I'm Jill Doherty, CNN, reporting live from the White House.
Thank you, Jill. We want to take a moment to say a special thank you to our CNN affiliates in Oklahoma City for their yeoman coverage of this disaster today and for helping to supplement our coverage of the Oklahoma City bombing. With their help, we've put together this compilation of the sights and sounds of this horrible day.
Our coverage of the Oklahoma City bombing, including more live reports, will continue in a moment.
It sounded like just one big boom, really loud. Then there was so much noise from everything falling in, though, you couldn't hear anything else.
This is just come to get our sympathy. I can't believe this is happening.
I got a daughter who works down here.
Oh, my God.
She's a federal parole officer.
You have a daughter in there that might be there?
Yeah, I haven't heard nothing from her.
It was named Four-Wheeler Magazine's Four-Wheeler of the Year. Automobile Magazine's All-Star Sport Utility. And selected by Popular Science as the best of what's new. How else would you expect people to react after spending hours in the Discovery?
I have to go again.
Discovery, the family vehicles from Land Rover.
You can see that we mean business the moment you walk in. Got so much more to offer than anywhere you've been. Office Max, taking it to the max.
Aisle after aisle and on every page of our catalog, you'll find the best name brands at Office Max. Over 6,000 business products, drastically discounted every day, guaranteed to your satisfaction.
Office Max, taking it. Office Max, to the max.
America's always been a country of inventors, of relentless tinkerers. And if you're Bank of America, you hold up your end of the job to keep the wheels turning. Banking on America. Bank of America.
How do you know? Who do you trust? What are they really saying? Only one long-distance company gives you written proof that your business saves over AT&T. There's no question about savings with MCI's Proof Positive.
Well, sure, my business is saving with AT&T. At least I think so. I feel that we are. I'm sure that we are. How would I know if we weren't? I don't think we'd know. I don't know if we're saving.
There's no question about savings with MCI's Proof Positive.
Out from under the desk, and there just wasn't any building left around us.
Really?
So our whole office area is gone.
So if you weren't under that desk, you wouldn't have made it?
Well, my floor was okay, and the ceiling had come down, but there was still concrete above, so it was just a corner of the office that was left that we were in. Everybody else that we worked with is gone.
Well, cities and counties all over the U.S. have disaster plans and drills, but no one is ever totally prepared for such carnage.
Joining us now in Atlanta is Greg Maxwell, a former disaster response planner with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. He's currently working on security plans for the 1996 Summer Olympics. And Mr. Maxwell will maybe touch on the ramifications of this disaster on future security plans for mass events in just a moment. But first, your assessment of how the emergency response officials in Oklahoma City have been responding to this.
Well, the disaster itself is chaotic, but the response isn't. People are trained in this. Disaster planners from around the country are coordinated through the Federal Emergency Management Agency and trained on how to handle mass casualty, multi-incident planning rather than the daily work that any emergency services has to face. This is multiple incidents. I was reading in the reports of the hospitals being a lot of people, that 300 people are unaccounted for. A lot of that is the overflow in the hospitals, that there is no admittance policy during that time.
Well, take us inside the logistics of trying to coordinate several different agencies from local and state and federal agencies, all working towards the same effort to get as many survivors out and just basically to respond to what's at hand.
It goes along with the training in emergency management when you have massive incidents that occur, that cities know where their realm is, and the county and the federal agencies. When the federal agencies come in, that's to support the local plan. They always stick with the local plan and continue to support that area. This type of work happens with federal disasters all over the place, from the riots in LA to the floods in Midwest to Hurricane Andrew. You saw that coordination effort constant, and that's what went into effect immediately right after the bombing.
Well, a lot of people have been watching these horrible images all day long and wondering why, of all places, Oklahoma City, in the heartland of this country. And how would emergency officials there have a plan ready to deal with what we're presuming is international terrorism?
Well, that's an interesting question. I was thinking about that, and if you look at what has happened with 500 people in a building, look at Sioux City Falls, Iowa, when they had an airplane crash. It was a very small city, and they were able to handle that very well. And cities just look at, they probably have practiced for a smaller type of event, and all you do is you make a mirror magnitude that. But it's still the same effect, and it's the same response, whether it's a flood, a plane crash, or a bombing.
And given the aftermath of the flooding in the Midwest, I presume that might be why such a plan was in place, to be able to deal with the explosion today.
Yes, that, and I would say the New Madrid fault threat also has really boosted up the emergency management in the Midwest.
In dealing with the survivors and those needing immediate medical treatment, once you've taken care of the immediate medical concerns, who takes care of dealing with the aftermath and the follow-up in terms of counseling for anyone who may suffer post-traumatic stress syndrome?
That's getting to be a very in-depth science now, and we're seeing that response more and more as it's not over once the smoke is cleared and all the rock and the rebels cleared. It's actually trying to deal with that. You build up a adrenaline in your body, and you have this constant movement, and all of a sudden you're not accepting your other feelings, and all of a sudden these hit you really hard. I'm not an expert in psychology whatsoever, but I do know that psychologists do have response teams. They have a trauma team that goes into effect. I've seen them work. They're teams that are trained in doing this, dealing with bombings, with a terrorist act, which is man-made, to natural disaster. Of course, natural disasters are much easier to respond to than the man-made ones.
Is there any kind of eye during this whole response that is kept to the fiscal bottom line? Because bureaucrats have very sort of cold cost-benefit ratios that they deal with many times. Does anyone try to be mindful of that, or do you just basically go ahead and do whatever needs to be done and worry about the cost later?
Well, that's kind of hard to say. I never worried about it. I wasn't at that level that I would have to worry about it. My job was to make sure that the city or the county or the state that the disaster hit was able to recover, and that was my main concern. And I think that's what everybody's main concern is right now, and I think the president himself said it, but that is the main concern, is to servicing the people in Oklahoma City.
All right, Greg Maxwell, former FEMA planner, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. And we're going to go now to CNN's Bonnie Anderson live in Oklahoma City. Bonnie?
Well, the search is continuing. As you might imagine, we're being told right now that the death toll now stands at 28 dead, including 12 children. With me is Assistant Fire Chief John Hanson. Now, these numbers represent just those that you have brought out of the building. Isn't that true?
Yes, ma'am. We have many more fatalities in the building on various floors that we're working around. The reason we're leaving those people there is because our focus has to be on potential survivors in the building.
Any sense of how many might be inside, dead or alive? Well,
quite a few dead. We're hoping for some people alive.
Hundreds?
Possibly, a good possibility on the death side. One success story. We located a 15-year-old girl that was alive, that had been in that building all day in the basement, and we're able to successfully rescue her about 10 o'clock Oklahoma time, and she's in a local hospital now. She was talking to us through the rescue. We had to work through bodies and through debris, but that was an uplift for emergency workers, working all day through the carnage and whatnot, that we found this little girl alive. So,
what kind of condition was she in?
She's in critical condition. She's severely injured, but she had the caring in her heart. She was worried about her friends, and we were talking to her. She had some friends with her, so we're concentrating some rescue efforts in that area on that.
Was she there as part of the daycare center side, or?
We're not sure. We didn't answer those type of questions to her. We'll find that out later. But it was a very airy scene when we arrived this morning. First in crews, our headquarters fire station is just down the street. And when we arrived on the scene, we had some of the toys and stuff had been blown out in the street from the daycare center. And so we knew there were kids involved. Fortunately, a couple of little ones kind of wandered out of the debris. We were able to get them away, but unfortunately, we've got about 12 of those little ones that didn't make it.
What are you using in your rescue effort? How are you trying to locate survivors?
Well, we're using our census, our rescue teams. We've got about 5 people assigned to each rescue team. Some of the teams have search and rescue dogs. When the dogs make a hit, we'll concentrate those efforts in that area. We have a FEMA team on the scene right now on a crane that's making some floor surveys. It's refreshing to have other experts come in and help us out. Fresh set of eyes. You know, we've been here doing this since 9 o'clock this morning, and there's maybe some things we overlook, and it's just refreshing that we've got people around our country that bond and care enough to come in and help us out in this time of tragedy.
Are there parts of the building that you still do not have access to, that you can't reach?
Yes, ma'am. There are some areas where we haven't been able to get to yet because of the structural integrity of that building being so bad. When we had the bad weather come through just a little bit ago, we had to slow our rescue efforts down. We have a structural engineer and the architect of the building helping us out, evaluating where we can go, where we can't go safely.
Do you have any word on have you located any other survivors? Do you know whether there are any other people in there alive?
We're just trying to locate areas where we believe survivors could be at that point, and as we did in the basement, and that's where the FEMA people are helping us out at this point.
I understand that there have been dogs included in the rescue effort. Very helpful then.
Very much so. The dogs have made some hits, and in some areas that are helping us. It helps us focus in on certain areas where we might miss something or something.
We hate to estimate, but if you have seen so many bodies in there and you're not dealing with them right now, can you give us a sense? We've heard that as many as 300 people are unaccounted for. Could the death toll reach that high?
You know, it's just hard to say right now. What we're reporting is what we have in our morgue, and there are numerous other fatalities in that building that we haven't brought out yet, and that death toll could really skyrocket over what it is right now.
Will you be working around the clock?
Oh yes, ma'am. We've got lights set up in the building, and we're not going to slow down or stop unless something with the building causes us to do that. And we're rotating our folks in and out, and we'll be here as long as it takes to perform any type of rescue.
Any type of traumatic effect on your workers? Have they experienced any kind of either emotional problems, emotional trauma as a result of this?
Oh, yes, ma'am. You know, in a situation like this, especially when you have the kids involved, it's tough for all rescue workers, not just firefighters. And it's tough for the news media, too, to report things like this. And I was going into the building today right after the explosion happened, and we had firefighters coming out with tears in their eyes, with the carnage, knowing that the kids were involved, and a lot of them relating to children they have at home, and that's a tough issue to deal with. We've got critical incident management workers here helping those emergency service personnel when they come out of the building. We send them to an R&R area and get them some help.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. As you just heard, the assistant fire chief reported that within the past hour, a 15-year-old girl was rescued alive. She's in very critical condition, but has been able to be transported to a hospital. I'm Bonnie Anderson, CNN, reporting live from Oklahoma City.
And CNN's coverage of the Oklahoma City bombing continues in a moment.
We'll look at the lessons learned from the last major terrorist act in the U.S.
There's no compassion for anybody, and this is just a cold-blooded killing. This is just cold-blooded murder any way you put it.
Sunday. Industry says they've cleaned up their act. Environmentalists still fear the worst. Who's telling the truth? CNN presents Sunday.
Never has business been more diverse. Never has business had a sharper perspective. Western Security Bank appreciates the special contributions women have made to business today. That's why Western Security Bank offers special financial programs suited to the businesswoman. As working women continue to grow in numbers and position, Western Security would like to grow with them. Western Security Bank in Burbank, serving the entire business community.
This Abbey Carpet ad says they have low prices.
Well, so does this other store.
Abbey Carpet says they have professional installation.
So do these stores.
Huge selection.
Same here.
Abbey Carpet guarantees that any stain can be removed from your new qualifying carpet or they'll replace it free.
Here, give me a minute here.
Carpets qualifying for the Scotch Care Protection Plan are on sale now at Julius Caesar Flooring and Design, serving the San Fernando Valley.
Even pet stains.
CNN is Calling All Sports with Vince Cellini, tonight, 1 Eastern.
Look what's popping up for spring. It's Sears Days. You'll find many of our lowest prices of the season, but it only lasts 11 days. Come to Sears Days.
Talk about a big star. This guy did it all. Drama, comedy, buddy pictures, but fame went to his head and priced himself out of the market. It's like what's happened to some Japanese cars. For instance, this Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme is over $4,000 less than Toyota's Camry LE and Nissan's Maxima GXE. There's a moral to this story. You get too expensive, you get burned. It's your money.
Only Embassy Suites hotels give you a suite with 2 big rooms, a free cook-to-order breakfast, and evening beverages on the house. Because only Embassy Suites is twice the hotel. Call 1-800-EMBASSY.
When you first bought your vinyl siding, they told you to clean it, just wash it off with a hose. Well, look, that doesn't always work. Good thing there's new Armor All Vinyl Siding Wash. Just spray it on, wait 5 minutes, then do what they told you to do. Wash it off with a hose. See? Guess they had our product in mind when they told you that. New Armor All Vinyl Siding Wash. We took the knowledge of Armor All and applied it to your home.
In the next 30 minutes, your world will change. And headline news will be there to report it all. In the next 30 minutes, headline news. A whole day's news every half hour.
What does your business get when combining breaking news with a Network 486 PC? CNN at Work. Get the competitive edge of being the first to know. Call 1-800-CNN-WORK. That's 1-800-CNN-WORK.
And all of a sudden, an explosion went off, and